Good evening, I'm Noa Levek, and today Neriya Levran and I, both pediatric dietitian, in a joint lecture, will talk about dietary trends, what we should keep up and what we should give up. First thing I want to say is that when we mention the word diet, it's always in the context of losing weight or to do something about the weight. And one of the most important points is that diet is not only about losing weight, it is also about the quality of life and what you're doing with your food and how you treat the food and what are your habits with the food, which is not less important than losing weight. And we'll try to cover it today, so let's go. So the first part will be short and will include some data and information on obesity, diet and disease. This is the depressive part. In the second part, we will deal with the dietary trends, what is happening in the world and in Israel. And at the end, we will talk a little about bottom line, which habits we should adopt. So what happens with the obesity epidemic? Basically, there are four main factors in terms of metabolic risk, the first of which is obesity and overweight. So look at the map of obesity in the United States. The color green is very rare. These are the countries that have only 20 to 25% obesity. And that means that no country today has less than 20% obesity. Most countries are orange and red, between 30 to 30%. The second metabolic risk is blood pressure, the silent killer. The third is cholesterol, and the fourth is diabetes mellitus. On the other end, we have four main factors in the prevention of metabolic disease, the protectors. No smoking, moderate consumption or no consumption of alcohol, exercise, and nutrition, of course. What is going on in Israel in terms of obesity? The latest data is from 2017, which can be seen on the right, that over 50% of the population then was overweight and obese. And on the left, in the graph, that looked at people, how satisfied they are with themselves. And you can see on the left side that over 50% have expressed desire to lose weight. And on the right, you can see that 20% are dieting in a given period of time. So that is the mindset. Now, there are 5 people in front of you. Very cute people, happy with themselves. And why so? Because they did a weight loss process and succeeded in it and reached their goal. When we look at researches on success weight loss, we are talking about someone who has managed to lose weight, 10% of his body weight, and also maintain it for at least a year. And my question now is, if I take these 5 people in a year and I meet them again, how many of them will still be happy? And the sad answer is that probably only 1 of 5 and 20%, and these are more optimistic figure. And the question arises is why? Okay, why? The first reason is behavioral reason. When I do some kind of a diet or process of weight loss, I have very clear strategies. And many times when I reach the goal of losing weight, I will start wear out these strategies a bit. For example, if I had strategy that during the week I don't eat desserts, after I have reached my weight goal, a spontaneous birthday in the office for one of my friends, and I will eat a cupcake in the middle of the week. Those little falls will eventually accumulate into a big thing and could spoil the process. The second factor is basically a kind of environmental pressure, social pressure, after I get to my target weight. And the last reason is a little different. It's hormonal. Our hunger hormones signaling us. They seem to be the whisperers that say to us that we are still a little bit hungry and make us eat more and gain some more weight. As you already know, the fundamental cause of obesity is an energy imbalance between calories consumed and calories expended. with the involvement of a complex interplay of biological, genetic, and psychosocial factors. Now let's talk about the nutrition aspect to decrease energy intake and to support weight management. But first of all, which diet would I give a gold medal as the best diet in the world? Diet comes and goes, teasing and tempting with dreams of that elusive perfect body. But it really works? That's the $1,000,000 question. And by saying work, what do we mean? So let's try to answer this rather difficult question. So there is a very nice American site that called Best Diet that every year takes lots of diets. Let's say now it took 40 diets. There are professionals there, doctors, dietitians, psychologists, that ranks the diet according to a lot of categories. What are the categories? How easy to follow, its ability to produce short-term weight loss, to produce long-term weight loss, its nutritional completeness, its safety, its potential for preventing the managing diabetes or heart disease. And according to that, they give a score. The rating is between 5, the highest score, and 1, the lowest. And let's see who wins the gold medal this year. Ta-da! So the winner is the Mediterranean diet, which has been in the first place for several years. Second place is the DASH diet, a diet designed to balance blood pressure values. And there are all sorts of other diets here, and I looked and didn't know over half of them. Let's take a look at the categories. As you see in the left, the Mediterranean diet is first in the place in the category of best diet overall. It is also first in place in the best diet in terms of plant-based nutrition. Take a look at the third line. It's only 25th place for the fastest way of lose weight. Is it the disadvantage or maybe even an advantage? In terms of the quality of moderate weight loss, in terms of less muscle mass loss, it's a question. It is the first place of diets used to treat diabetes. And another very important thing, it is the first place in diet that are easiest to follow. And I think that this is a very significant factor for good diet. So, the diet can be roughly divided into 3 categories. Diets that are based on the restriction of specific food or food groups like gluten-free, paleo, vegetarian, and Mediterranean diets. The diets that are based on manipulation of macronutrients content like low-fat, high-protein, the low-carbohydrate diet, and the diet based on manipulation of timing, the fasting. And if we look at this figure, the Mediterranean diet includes most groups, the green and less gray. There are minimum restrictions there. Let's dive in and understand more about what is the Mediterranean diet includes. So this review summarizes a comprehensive overview of the current knowledge on the relation of the Mediterranean diet to important health outcomes, considering both observational and intervention studies. And let's see what are the health benefits of the Mediterranean diet. So, the Mediterranean diet offers health benefits including weight loss, heart and brain health, cancer prevention, and diabetes prevention and control. By following it, you could also keep the weight off while avoiding chronic disease. As we see here, it improves lipid profile and insulin levels, glucose levels, insulin sensitivity, prevention heart disease, reducing mortality, reducing visceral fat in the pancreas, in the liver, in the abdominal, improving sexual function, less depression, anti-aging, prevention cancer, immune system, it improves it, and the cardiometabolic risk markers, a lot of benefits. So, what is a Mediterranean diet? It's generally accepted that the people living in the country bordering the Mediterranean Sea live longer and suffer less than most Americans from cancer and cardiovascular disease. The not so surprising secret is an active lifestyle, eating culture of family meals, siesta, social support system, and sense of community. There isn't a Mediterranean diet. Different countries share many of the same lifestyle principle. The word diet comes from the Greek word and its meaning is lifestyle. And I want to explain the principle of the Mediterranean diet through the new food of arc of the Israeli Ministry of Health. So if you look at the outer arc, the blue one, it talks about the environmental aspects. The bag of money talks about the economic aspect, for example, eating fresh fruit and vegetables from local produce. We support local agriculture and we are actually saving cost and transportation products. The second aspect is the aspect of family, eating, tribalism, preparing food together, eating family meals together. The third aspect is the health issue. The Mediterranean diet has many benefits, as we saw. The next thing is the exercise as part of the Mediterranean diet, and the last aspect is in the left is ecological aspect. Plant-based require less resources from nature in order to grow, reducing transport. It will help Earth conservation. If we look at the rainbow itself, okay, look at here. In terms of food, so basically we have the green outer arc, which is what I want to consume on daily basis: fruit, vegetables, all grain, carbs. In the yellow arc, there are things that I want to consume at least once a day. These are the vegetables, fat, and of course the olive oil, and next to eat we have the tahini, almonds, nuts, avocados, and dairy products like yogurt. At the orange arc, we have the proteins from the animals, eggs, low-fat chicken, fish, and that are rich in omega-3. At the small pink arc, we have the red meat, which is better to minimize its consumption, up to 300 grams per week. And below, just apart from the rainbow, are the foods that are really recommended to avoid: sweet drinks, snacks, and ultra-processed food. So it's all about eating plant food, seasonal, local, fresh, and home cooking, unprocessed food, using herbs, garlic, lemon for seasoning, the dessert of fresh fruit or wine almost without sweets. It includes vitamins, mineral, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant, and it has synergistic effect beyond the contribution of individual components to the human health. So basically, you can sum it up, the food arc, in 3 words. Okay, only 3 words. Eat real food. That's the meaning. And as the powerful quote of Michael Pollan says, don't eat anything your great-grandmother would not recognize as food. So what exactly does this quote mean? Or in other words, what is this food that we are advised to avoid eating? What is the red part in the food arc? So this is the ultra-processed food. And what is it? Well, ultra-processed food is basically food that goes through a lot of processes, and by the time it reaches us or our plate or the store shelf, it's usually a product that contains a lot of ingredients like oil and salt and preservative, emulsifier, food coloring, and all sorts of things. We do not exactly know about what have been added to the product. This usually refers to salty and sweet snacks, sweet drinks, and all kind of fast food, various margarine and things like that. It is customary to define food processing according to four levels. The Nova 1, unprocessed or minimally processed food, like vegetables, fruits, grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, and all kind of eggs, dairy products, meat, and raw fish. Okay, the food that we want to eat. The Nova 2 is culinary ingredients, for example, oil, sugar, salt, that are not usually eaten alone. The Nova 3 is the processed food. It's a combination of food from group 1, okay, with the seasoning from group 2. And for example, it's homemade soup or salad. And here we come to the level of Nova 4, which is the most problematic and common in the food industry today, and is the ultra-processed food. Food that have been supplemented with food additives or food whose components have undergo chemical or physical processes such as hydrolysis or hydrogenation, for example. So let's give an example, okay? If we take the corn cob, okay, it's a natural food. I picked it, I cooked it, I brought it into my plate. An example of processed form is the canned corn. It's in the industry, they took the corn and added salt, water, sometimes other things, and this is the processed product, Nova 3. Let's move forward to corn at the ultra-processed stage, Nova 4. So here we see a snack such as Doritos. This is already rich in fat and flavors and aromas and few other things. Another example of the ultra-processed food is the corn product, which is sometimes slightly frustrating because many of us like it, is the cornflakes. It is an ultra-processed configuration of corn, unfortunately. Other things I always recommend you to look is the list of ingredients and food labels. This is in Hebrew. I always say that if you look at the food label and there are names there that you do not know, then you should start to get suspicious, okay? And the second thing is that there is a kind of a rule of thumb that says that if a product contains more than 5 ingredients, it already becomes processed and ultra-processed. For example, this product, which I will soon reveal to you in front of you, and you may already be guessing what it is. It has wheat and wheat bran and sugar and barley malt extract and salt and emulsifier E471, for example. And the first 5 places should make you suspecting. So this product is, I did some market survey among people around me, and many people see it as a very healthy product, and this is the product, it's Bran Flex. So my recommendation is that you start keeping an eye on the list of ingredients in the products, see what you're buying and what you're consuming more and what you're consuming less, and you may discover surprises. So what's the problem, okay? The question arises is why to make such a fuss about ultra-processed food? I mean, what's the problem with it? Why are we constantly alerting? So the first problem is that it is very crowded in there. It refers to energy density per product weight. In the very, very small dish, we get a load of calorie. For example, such a cute Belgian waffle, not too big, can contain between 500 to 600 calories. That's a lot. For a lot of people, it's almost half amount of energy they need on a daily basis. The second thing is it's very tasty, yummy. Come on, we cannot ignore it. It's very, very tasty, okay? And the processed ultra food contain a lot of salt and a lot of sugar and spiciness and fat, so they're delicious and we want to eat from them. The next thing is that many times eating that ultra-processed food will be unconsciousness. Why? Because we will eat them snacks on to go. We will eat them while we're doing something else or watching TV or dealing with other sort of things. And I'm not dealing with the food. And actually my sense of satiety is less good and it makes me eat more. And the fourth brings me to the last point, which is specific to sugary drink. One of the dangers with the sugary drinks is that they actually confuse our mechanisms of hunger and satiety. Sugary drinks are a risk factor for fatty liver and cardiovascular disease and diabetes, and drinks that come from natural fruit, they unfortunately fall into the same category. Because if I eat fruit, one orange for example, then I will get an amount of sugar derived from the fruit, and I will get dietary fibers, and I will also get vitamins and minerals, but I also eat. And there is meaning to the action of chewing. So my mouth works and my stomach works to digest the fruit. And my feeling of satiety is much better compared to a situation that I will drink the orange juice. So the amount of sugar in it will be much higher because the glass will contain 3 squeezed oranges. And I have no dietary fibers, and my feeling of satiety is much less good. So our best recommendation is to just drink water. In short, we should avoid ultra-processed food. So we realized what is good in the Mediterranean diet and its benefit. And the question that arises is, can the Mediterranean diet get even better? So this is Professor Iris Shai. She is a professor of nutrition and epidemiology from Israel, and she asked this question and contributed extensively with our randomized controlled trials to understand the many benefits of the Mediterranean diet. And she was trying to figure out if it is possible that the Mediterranean diet could become even better. So now I would like to introduce you the Green Mediterranean Diet, which is improved version of the healthy Mediterranean diet with increased consumption of plant-based food and reduced processed meat intake. It includes the 28 grams of walnuts, approximately 11 halves, 3 to 4 cups of green tea, and 100 grams of mankai. So let's see what it is and why. So the green tea, one of the things that added to the green Mediterranean diet is rich source of polyphenols. Most of the polyphenols found in the green tea are catechin, EGC, ECG, EGCG. Studies have found an association between green tea and improvement of cardiometabolic health, weight reduction, and improved cognitive function. The second ingredient of the diet is the mankai. It's an aquatic plant, serves as a plant protein source, good source of omega-3 fatty acid rich in soluble fibers, iron, vitamins, minerals, and polyphenols, with these complicated names like apigenin and all the other things. And it provides us bioavailable essential amino acids, iron, vitamin B12. Prepare the green mankai, the patient, the subject in the randomized controlled trial, prepare themselves a green mankai shake with additional ingredients, and the green protein shake partially substituted for their dinner. This is how it grows in the Be'eri kibbutz. It's an aquatic plant, as we said, and we can see all kinds of recipes in the net with this mankai. That is very nice, and we will summarize some of the insights from the studies. So, a green Mediterranean diet, lower in processed meat, and supplement with green plants may amplify beneficial cardiometabolic effect of the Mediterranean diet, and thus has potential importance for public health. And another trial said that green Mediterranean diet can double intrahepatic fat loss and other healthy nutritional strategies and reduce NAFLD in half. And the latest is that the green Mediterranean diet is potentially neuroprotective for age-related brain atrophy. That's amazing. Now I hand over the stick to Neriya. So thank you all. Goodbye.
Good evening, everyone. I'll take the stick and continue with the lecture. After Noah talked about the best diet of all times, I'll be the voice of the most popular diet. Let's see what happens on the social media. Here, when we look in the Google, it is a completely different world and completely different kind of experts. So if we look at what people searched in Google in 2021, we see that the first place is the ketogenic diet and the second place is the intermittent fasting. Another young player is the TikTok. Here we can see that the keto diet is in the first place, and when we look at the intermittent fasting, we're talking about the 9th place. Both in Google and in TikTok, the Mediterranean diet does not really appear. Now, what does that mean? Going back to the diet categories, we'll now be talking of the second one. We're talking about the diet based on manipulation of macronutrient content. After Noah told us to eat real food, the question is whether a special composition of food will best promote weight loss. We know that changes in the macronutrient composition will have an effect on hormones, metabolic pathways, gene expression, and function of the gut microbiome. One emerging diet is becoming a mainstream is the low-carb, high-fat diet. Today, I won't be speaking of that. I will be speaking of the ketogenic diet. Although it is low in carbs and high in fat, there is a major difference on the effect that it has on our metabolism. Still, the question remains if the equation of calorie in and calorie out works here as well. The distribution amount of carbohydrates is shown in this table. We can see that under 130 grams of carbohydrates a day is considered a low carbohydrate diet. As we go down in the table, we see that the reduction of carbs is even less. We're talking about 20% of carbs. The mathematics of reducing a food group clearly causes an increase in consumption of another food group. The main difference between a very low carbohydrate diet and a very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet is the amount of protein and fat. In this diagram, we can see the macronutrient distribution between the different diets. So if we look at the left, the dietary guidelines of America suggest that 45 to 65% of the calorie intake should come from carbohydrates. Just to understand what that really actually means is that when a person eats 2,000 calories, he would have to eat about 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrates a day. And if we talk about bread, that means about 15 to 21 slices of bread a day. The second diet is the therapeutic ketogenic diet. It is typically used for epilepsy and cancer treatment and has a more strict guidelines. And what it really means, we're talking about 90% of fat. So if we eat 5 grams of food, then 4 grams of it would be fat and 1 gram would be protein or carbohydrate. The third diet is the standard ketogenic diet that has 20% protein and 75% of fat. The carbs here come from vegetables, but just to make an understanding what it means, we're talking about no more than 2 slices of bread. The goal of the ketogenic diet is to reach the ketosis state. And we can really think about this in a metaphoric way of changing the fuel to our car from oil to electricity. And by that, changing the performance of the car, the amount of pollution, and so on. The ketogenic diet is supposed to metabolic mimic starvation and go to ketosis state. In order to be in ketosis state without starvation, we really need to minimize the carb amount in the diet to less than 15 grams a day and sometimes even 20 grams a day. By restricting carbohydrate intake, the blood sugar levels are low and subsequent insulin reduction will then change and instruct the body to change from a state of storing to a state of fat oxidation. Now, that fat is a primary fuel source in the liver, the ketogenesis begins. And during the ketosis, three major ketone bodies are formed. We're talking about the acetone, acetoacetate, and beta-hydroxybutyrat. All cells that contain mitochondria can use the ketones for fuel, including the brain and the muscles. And if we look at in a diagram, we see that the ketogenic diet is really a reversal of the old food pyramid. So that means the fat, instead of being up, would be in the base of the pyramid. And what actually a day in a ketogenic diet looks like, so here we see an example. So for breakfast, a person on a ketogenic diet would eat an omelet made from 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of butter, a slice of mozzarella, and 5 olives. For lunch, he would eat half a cup of broccoli with 200 grams of steak, olive oil on it, and 1 square of bitter chocolate for dessert. Dinner would be 1 can of tuna and oil, a Greek salad, mostly of green vegetables, with feta cheese, and a tablespoon of olive. So the carbs really come from the broccoli and the protein that in the metabolism of the gluconeogenesis will be expressed as sugars after a few hours. This will add up to about 5% carbs from the whole calories. I might say that this is a refined version of the ketogenic diet due to a surveillance of a dietitian. If we look online, we see a more aggressive version of steak and butter in the morning and so on. So it really, really needs to be monitored by a certified dietitian. Now, the search in PubMed will give us really the question of that really matters is the potential benefits of the ketogenic diet. And we see it can come in many different forms of microbiome, diabetes, cancer, epilepsy. But today, I'll be talking only about the weight loss strategy. So in meta-analysis and a systematic review that is asking the same question, we can see that the conclusion was that a very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet can be recommended as an effective dietary treatment for individuals with obesity, in particular patients with severe obesity and comorbidities. Now, it is important to personalize the diet based on the patient's preference, and after achieving the weight target with a very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet, implementation for long-term lifestyle strategies is really, really important. So if we summarize the advantages of a ketogenic diet, we can see that it really accelerates early weight loss. It will decrease appetite. And research suggests that the beta-hydroxybutyrat acts as a signal molecule and may play a role in suppressing the appetite. We see in research of El Libitum that when comparing to a ketogenic diet to Mediterranean diet, the calorie intake was lower in the ketogenic diet. So maybe that is the cause of the weight loss. There is an increased lipolysis, but when we finally add all this up, we don't really know whether for the long term does it help keep this reduction of weight. And we don't really know, there is no one answer whether the weight reduction is due to lower calorie intake or the macronutrient manipulation. When we go back to the ranking of diet, we can see that the keto diet is the best fast weight loss diet, and it's ranked number 4. So this is an important thing we need to know. Now we can't just talk about the ups of the diet. There are several adverse effects that really need to be mentioned. I won't go over all of them, just the main. So we know that there is constipation due to the lack of fiber. This is one of the common complaints. There can be a nutrient deficiency, We see sometimes keto flu, which is a really bad feeling in the beginning of the diet. It could be nausea, vomiting, but it really goes away after several weeks. There is increased all-cause mortality. That's what we can see in the research. So this is really a question whether we want to do this diet. And there can also be a keto rash, which is something that I actually saw in the clinic. So really what my message here is that if you do this diet, you have to do it with a certified dietitian. This is something that you can't do alone. It's really important to be in surveillance. So we talked about eating real food. We talked about manipulating macronutrients. And now we ask another question, not the what question, but the when question. So the third category is diets based on manipulating of timing, or maybe the fasting diets. And we can't talk about it without talking about the circadian cycle. So the circadian cycle is a natural internal process that regulates the sleep-wake cycle and repeats roughly every 24 hours. Research show the importance of following our circadian cycle. In a survey extending the night fasting by 3 hours, it was found that there would be a decrease in hemoglobin A1C and CRP in women. Moreover, when we look at night eating negatively affects the quality and duration of sleep, and eventually might lead to an increased risk of obesity, diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. So really that's the basic of this intermediate fasting, or manipulating with the eating. Now, intermediate fasting is an umbrella term that encompasses a number of different fasting regimes, which involve consuming few or no calories for a period of time. So here we can see that there is the 16-8 regime, which means that 8 hours we eat regularly and 16 hours we don't eat. And there is really an early 16 to 80 or a late 16 to 8. That means when we start eating. Another regime is the 24 hours fasting. That's once or twice a week. And another one is the 5-2, which means that you eat only 500 to 600 calories a day in 2 non-consecutive days. And in the other 5 days, you really eat normally. So there are several versions. I am going to zoom in a little bit of the time-restricted diet that is 16 and 8 hours. And what really means that you eat for 8 hours real food. And for the next 16 hours, you only drink water, soda, tea, coffee, without milk, of course. And what is the beneficial effect of time-restricted eating? We're talking reduction of body weight, fat mass, blood glucose, insulin resistance, and impaired beta cell functions. We're talking about lowering liver fat, lowering inflammation, blood pressure, and improving the sleep quality. So there is a bunch of benefits, and we want to see what really happens in the research. So recently there was an article that was published in the New England. It was a 12-month randomized control trial, and they were really looking between 2 groups: the dietary calorie restriction alone and the dietary calorie restriction with time-restricted eating. They were talking about 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And there was a reduction in weight, but after 12 months among patients with obesity, a regime of time-restricted eating was not more beneficial with regards to reduction of body weight, body fat, or metabolic risk factors than daily calorie restriction. So there is no diet inferior, superior. They're the same. No adverse events were reported. So this is a really important issue. So now we're zooming back and remembering the first question that Noa asked in the beginning of our lecture. And it was, is there a best diet? What's the best diet for losing weight? And the answer is that there is no answer. So really there are 40 kinds of diets and probably even more. And there is even a cookie diet. But really there is no diet that is the best. It's important, or my really take-home message is that it is important to personalize and customize a diet. And you really need something that will suit you. If it does not fit your lifestyle, the chance that you will stick to it for a long time is very, very low. You need it to follow your agenda. The second thing we want to say, that it might be obvious, but I'll say it anyway. As long as the goal of the diet is to lose weight, you must be in a position where you will put less energy into your body than the amount of energy you expel from your body. You need to have a negative calorie balance in order to lose weight. And if we continue and put the puzzle together, we could say that age, gender, and socioeconomic status were not found to be associated with weight loss success. What kept the 20%, the 1 out of 5? We're talking about weight monitoring. We're talking about exercise that is really crucial for maintaining target weight. Okay, so this is something that you need to start right away. We're talking about food tracking. That means serving size, calorie tracking, orderly meals. This is a real strong predictor. High fruit and vegetable consumption, and of course reduction of sugary drinks. This is a strong predictor. Of course, lack of family support. This is a predictor of failure, so we really need support of our family. Sedentary life, watching TV for instance, is a predictor of failing in the diet. And I didn't go into it, but there is an issue of eating breakfast in the morning. The thermogenesis is higher, and we, in several research, see that it really affects weight loss. So all of this are really predictors for us to be in the 20% that do succeed and stay in the goal weight. So if we summarize the whole thing, nutrition is not a 100-meter run, but it's a long-distance run. And the goal is to continue to adopt good habits that will stay with us and support us over time. We don't want to chase weight, but we want to follow really good habits. And to summarize all of that, I'll say that there is no such thing as an effective diet. Stop looking for magic. Methods, exercise, eat protein, nutritional values, move, and of course, listen to us. Thank you very much.